Hello BookTube, my name is Sean and welcome back to my channel. It's been about nearly 4 weeks now since I uploaded my first video, so I thought it was about time. Got my arse into gear and uploaded some new content for you guys before all 4 or 5 of my subscribers drift off and find people who do actually keep their channel up to date. Today I just wanted to talk through some of the books that I'm currently reading, what I'm moving on to next. I have got in the pipeline, I've been working on them, I've just not got around to finishing them off and editing them. Usual lame excuses about work and life and all that kind of stuff, but I will get round to it. So I've got a couple of wrap-ups for the readathons that I've been involved in so far. Booktubeathon, which seems like a dim and distant memory now, was at the end of July. I want to give you guys a wrap-up of the books that I've read during that week. And then more recently there has been the Tome Topple Readathon, which ran from the 4th of August to the 17th. And that was organised and hosted by Sam over on Thoughts on Tomes. I will link her channel down below. And I got through almost 3 books. In fact, it was quite frustrating because my TBR was 3 books and it got to midnight on the 17th, which is when the readathon finished, and I had 14 pages left in my last book to meet my TBR, so that was a little bit annoying, so close. Anyway, so I'll give you a wrap-up video on those as well in the next week or so, and then spinning off from that, there are a couple of videos that I want to do reviewing in more detail a couple of the books that I read in Booktubeathon. The first one being The Reluctant Fundamentalist by Mohsin Hamid, a book that I probably found more interesting than engaging and enthralling, which is one of the reasons I want to do a review on it. It wasn't a book that I loved by any stretch of the imagination, but so I'd like to pull out some of those threads and thoughts and put those together in a review video. The second one that I want to do a review video on is Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna Maguire, which I read as my last book for Booktubeathon. Now, this is a massively hyped book here on Booktube, and I think it just won the Hugo just last week. So I'm going to be in a massive minority. I don't think I've found anybody yet who has had a bad thing to say about this book, but I just couldn't get on with it, and I don't understand the attraction of it. So I'll put that together in a review to give you my thoughts, and maybe see whether there's anybody else out there who just didn't like that novel. So the books that I'm reading currently, not necessarily books that I would choose to put at the top of my TBR, but the reason I am reading them currently is they are books that I've got out from the library, and other people have had the temerity to put reservations on them, so I'm now having to try and race through these books before the end of August so that I can take them back into the library. Putting aside the fact that that's the way that I got these books out of the library, I think it's a bloody cheek that people can do that, forcing me to read them faster than I would want to. So the first of these is this book, which was picked up on the basis of a recommendation on Simon Savage's channel, Savage Reads, and it is See What I Have Done by Sarah Schmidt. This is a fictionalised retelling of the Lizzie Borden murder case, and the Lizzie Borden murder case was a famous murder case in the 1890s, early 1890s in Massachusetts, where 2 members of the Borden family were brutally struck down with an axe, and suspicion falls upon the youngest of the 2 daughters, Lizzie. So this, I'm already kind of nearly halfway through. I wouldn't say that this is kind of blowing me away at the moment. I think that the author does some really good things around building the atmosphere. So certain sections so far that I've read are set kind of the day before the murder, and others are set on the day of the murder, and it has kind of this different narrators. So you've got different members of the family, and it's giving their perspective. So it's creating this it's very effective at creating this kind of atmosphere, this kind of pressure cooker atmosphere that kind of built up to the murders. But it's not something that I would say, yes, this is going to be one of my favourite books of the year. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops in the second half, because it's not really where I've got to at the moment. As you say, it's almost halfway through. Not really got much beyond the day of the murder and the initial arrival of the police in the house. So that's the first one. The second one that I'm reading currently is this one, and this is a historical fiction based around the life of Dunstan, or Saint Dunstan. It's by Conn Iggulden, who's quite famous for other series of historical fiction, including ones around Genghis Khan and the Roman Empire, neither of which I have read. I have read his previous work on the Wars of the Roses, which I enjoyed, and so far I've only just really started this one last night, so not that far into it. This is about Dunstan, who was a churchman in the late sort of Saxon era in Wessex. So this is a few decades after King Alfred's death, when King Athelred is on the throne, and it's about his life, how he comes up through the church and comes to be the advisor of several kings. So looking forward to getting a bit further into that. So the next book that I need to read by the end of August, a library book, is one that I've not started yet. It's non-fiction. It is Adam Hochschild's King Leopold's Ghost, and the reason that I picked this up was recently I've read 2 fiction books set in the Congo. The first of those was Everfair by Nissi Shaw, a book that I really did want to love but ended up being fairly underwhelmed by in the end. It was a steampunk alternative history book about the setting up of a sanctuary state in the Congo for people, natives who were suffering under the Belgian colonists, and then the fight to save that state, essentially. Sounded like it should have been a great idea. It was a great idea, it was just not particularly well executed. And the other thing that I found particularly strange about that book, given the topic, was it didn't seem to ever deal directly with some of the kind of dark horrors that actually took place in the Congo at that time. It sort of seemed to deal with them at an arm's length or kind of tangentially. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to pick up this book, which is about that particular era when King Leopold and his cohorts were kind of exploiting the Congo, killing people and stripping of its natural resources. The other book that I read recently, fiction book, was the Poisonwood Bible, and I read that as part of Tome Topple. And although that is set in a later era, in the late 1950s and 1960s, this period of time when the Belgians were in there and they were taking out all the rubber and they were cutting off natives' hands where they didn't meet their rubber quota, kind of as a direct feed into the later story in the Poisonwood Bible, where the political context is more around the drive for independence. But there is still Belgian influence in the Congo at that time in the 1960s as the nation starts to push towards independence. So I really wanted to understand a little bit more about the actual history of it, and this book sounds like it puts it in a very interesting story, because this is about a guy who works for an English shipping company in Antwerp who notices on the manifests of the ships going in and out of the Congo that it seems to be a lot of rubber coming out and a lot of guns and machetes going in, and he starts to do a piece of really investigative journalism that exposes ultimately what is happening in the Congo. So I thought that sounded really interesting, and I hope to get through that in the next couple of weeks. And again, I'll probably do this in a bit of a wrap up later on to give you my thoughts on that, and I may collect it together with my thoughts on the Poisonwood Bible and on Everfair as well. So that just leaves 2 books that I've got to read in September for the September book clubs that I'm involved in. The first one is for the Fiction Book Club, and that is Ashes of London by Andrew Taylor. This is an historical thriller, and it is about a investigator tracking a murderer through the streets of London in the immediate aftermath of the Great Fire of London, and who then gets drawn into some of the political intrigue in the King's Court. I did read Andrew Taylor's book The American Boy some years ago, didn't leave particularly strong impressions, so I'll be interested to see how I get on with this one. And the final book for my history book club, and the way my history book club works is we don't choose one book that everybody goes away and reads. We choose a topic, and then people go away and pick their own books on that topic. So this month's topic is Guevara and Castro, and I've picked this book up, which is 1 Minute to Midnight by Michael Dobbs, which is about the Cuban Missile Crisis, so obviously involves Castro. It is a topic that I've been wanting to read up on in a while. I've seen obviously a couple of films on this topic and a documentary, but I've never read a book on it, so very much looking forward to this as well. And that's all I wanted to cover with you guys today. As I say, I've got a couple of wrap-up videos in the pipeline, and I'll probably get round to doing the BookTube newbie tag as well at some stage. So thanks for watching, and if you've got any comments on the books that I mentioned today, please leave them down below. Thank you now. Bye BookTube.